What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka MultimediaJay, and welcome to Retribution, The Bad Old Days, from World of Warcraft: The Burning Crusade, recorded August 30th, 2008, and it shows. This isn't even in widescreen. It was recorded with my old S-Video loop setup, consisting of the S-Video out from my graphics card and the analog out from my sound card, looping into a capture card that I had in my Windows XP computer back then. I think I did this was in the Core 2 Duo era. I hadn't even built Tuxedo yet. So, dual core, World of Warcraft, Burning Crusade. I had played patch 302 on the PTRs, and I liked the PTRs way more than the live game. I knew the days of the emasculated paladins and LOLRet in the early days of World of Warcraft were coming to an end with the launch of Wrath of the Lich King and the pre-patch that was coming up. So, before all of that happened, I decided to record a run-through of the Quel'danas daily quest hub to just show how bad things were back in the bad old days before Ret was finally fixed. If you want to see the raw gameplay version of this with no commentary whatsoever, the raw version has been on the channel for quite some time. Feel free to go check it out. But it is long past time, especially with WoW Classic on the horizon, that this footage finally got some commentary attached to it, even if I have to put everything in the random style series in order for this to make even a tiny bit of sense in today's day and age. So let's begin the footage. Let's literally play some stuff and hit the play button on it. Alright, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to 2008. World of Warcraft: The Burning Crusade, the Quel'danas Daily Quest hub. The first of the major hubs that did not require flying mounts. Previously, daily quests were in certain areas in the game back in those days, and you needed flying mounts, even the really slow ones, hi dude, in order to access them. So this is in the bad old days of LOLRet, and yep, you had this potion you drank, and the Naru buff in the corner besides the Sanctity Aura, which boosted your holy damage by 10% for Ret Paladins and Shockadins, by the way. Boosted your intelligence and your stamina for your higher health and magic. It did not actually increase your offensive power like intellect would do in later expansions. Hey, there's the Goblin Rocket Launcher, one of the engineering things, and one of the few ranged options that Paladins had when all they had was a 10-yard judgment. So, we're bringing some of that over from the early parts of the game, as well as the over-reliance on auto-attacks. So, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at here, these are the daily quests. We've already gotten them all, and we're starting out on the, kill the wretched dudes and pick the berries. So the big thing with the Paladins in this case was Blizzard fixed Ret, but they fixed it in baby steps. Intellect was taken off the gear, this was switched, that was switched. Things weren't completed until 302. And this is the last patch before all the major stuff in 302 finally came in. So I figured, let's archive this experience. We're talking about macroing lots of things. We're talking about you don't have a taunt unless you write a macro for it, because the closest thing Paladins had to a taunt for protection spec and all the other specs back then was, oh yeah, we gotta take care of the sentries too. But it didn't function like a taunt that the Druids or the Warriors would have. So as you can see here, we've got the glowy hands, which boosted your damage by 15%. But notice that my guy is using Blessing of Wisdom, which boosts his magic per 5, as opposed to Blessing of Might, which would actually increase his damage. That would be similar to today's ESO thing of burst versus sustain. You don't really do as much damage if you can't sustain it. And, of course, Paladins had the infamous blue rage bar. And so, as a Ret Paladin, in the days before it was fixed with judgments returning mana and stuff, you were basically an arms warrior that ran out of mana if you didn't have a large mana pool, and you couldn't sustain long fights without chugging tons of potions and stuff. So that's why my guy is using not only Blessing of Wisdom to get some MP5 so he doesn't have to stop and drink as much, but also rank 1 Seal of Command. That's right, there is still downranking in this game. And Seal of Command, the bulk of its damage came from the proc, which was basically like every so often when Seal of Casino, as it was called back then, procs, your character will do the equivalent of a warrior's heroic strike. So roll the dice and hope it procs. It's one of the things that Blizzard wanted to change going into Lich King with Divine Storm and the other revamps to Retribution, was to try and put Ret Paladins more in control of the damage that they could generate, and not have it be like, oh, a Ret Pally beat you in a duel. That's because they got lucky with procs. This became something that went into the rest of the game as well. So this quest actually had you reprogramming these robot things as well as picking stuff. And oh yeah, notice by the way that the heals I'm casting are macroed, so it changes, and so Seal of Command, so it automatically weapon swaps. Because Intellect had been taken off the gear, and Intellect grew your mana pool as well as the strength of your spells if you had spell damage and stuff. Now the way this worked back in those days was you could gear swap outside of combat with an add-on. You could weapon swap in combat. So you could just macro things to change gear. So you could change to healing in order to cast Holy Light and get a little boost to magic pool plus spell power and have the heal actually do more healing. And then change back to the Retribution gear, aka the purple gear, when it was time to fight again. You'll see later on, because I remember very specifically from this footage, where I screwed that up and fought for a large chunk of it with spell power gear, which was useless to Ret Paladins. And that was the thing back in those days. Blizzard would kick against the bricks when people said a class needed to be fixed. And when they did actually start fixing things, they would fix them in baby steps, and Ret Paladins were no exception to that. If this were a couple of patches earlier, there'd still be Intellect on the Retribution gear, and this would be less of an issue. But as Ret Paladins went through this bad time, they had to come up with workarounds and macros and add-ons and all kinds of other garbage like that, just to get through all of this. That was an old argument, by the way, back in Burning Crusade between the Warladins and the people that wanted to play so-called real Paladins, as to whether there should be Intellect on on DPS plate for Ret Pallies, because Ret Paladins used mana, of course. Took away from the stat bonus with versus strength and other stuff, but it was a clear delineator for the first chunk of the game between warrior gear and paladin gear as to whether there was some intellect on it as to who it was for. But this was considered an itemization issue where you'd have like a raid of all Horde, which didn't have paladins in the original game, and they'd be like, oh, more pally gear dropped. This sucks. So, notice though what this guy's doing. He's occasionally jumping and hitting with his purple hammer. None of that is because of a button press, unless it's Crusader Strike. So, you literally just... This is part of the new player friendliness that Blizzard tried to put into Paladins with the seal system. Is you would cast your seal, and then the effect would be tied to your auto attacks. So in this case, with Seal of Casino, it's the equivalent of a warrior's heroic strike. So maybe, just maybe, Seal of Command will proc. Maybe, just maybe, it'll crit. Maybe, just maybe, your white damage will crit as well. Maybe, just maybe, the rocket launcher will crit. You really just pushed some buttons, then watched and saw what happened. There was really no control over it. And this was a design choice of uncontrollable burst damage that ultimately was something Blizzard wanted to fix in later expansions, beginning with Lich King. So, okay, the sentries are all set. Where are we at on the berry picking? Gotta get a few more of those. So you can see from the length of this that you would spend roughly an hour doing this as a Ret Pally every single day. And it wasn't any better as the other two specs, because you did less damage. So, even if you were a Shockadin, you only had burst damage. So, very, very interested, though, if Blizzard brings back a classic service for Burning Crusade. I'm actually curious how far Shockadins can go in that kind of environment, because the reason Shockadins were ever a thing is because Retribution was awful for doing damage. But trying to do damage as holy, yeah, here we go. Trying to do damage as holy meant you would have burst only and no real sustained DPS, because most of the stuff that did stuff was on cooldowns. So you can see my guy's changed cloaks now, and he's wearing his intellect gear. Now if I get caught in combat, then I would be stuck with worthless intellect gear and not hitting as hard for Hunter feigning death. Hey, the bloodberries are done. Now we can finally hop on the mount. And by the way, mounts took longer to summon back then, in case you hadn't noticed yet. There was that hunter, of course, using feign death, largely to threat wipe, so the pet would just fight something, and then they would go to grab, like, the bloodberry and stuff. You're going to see all kinds of stupid stuff here, because one of the hallmarks of WoW and second-generation MMOs is that it got to the point where if you saw another player, they weren't good news. And here we go, activating the crystals, arming the wards, as it were. And I think we have, yep, we've got some company. Well, we just run until he resets. You'll see hunters doing stupid tricks. You'll see other people doing things to basically annoy you if you're doing your dailies. And if you're an off-spec that can't do any damage, you'll be busy fighting something and they'll grab the thing next to you. So, yay, turn-ins! The gold was nerfed beginning in Lich King, by the way, so other than the Shattered Sun reputation in today's game, there's not much of a reason to go back to this area. Now, if you've been watching, you may have noticed the mana pool bouncing up and down depending on what was equipped. That's because intellect affected the size of your mana pool back then, so it was a good idea to do this macroed gear swapping in order to maximize when you were healing and when you were fighting. But I do remember there was one point where my guy was stuck in his intellect gear for a while. I don't think we're at that yet. If you see a purple cape, that's not the case. So the fun part is, you turn in the bloodberries and you get the elixir. And I might have to try this on live to see if this still works. The elixir was a stat boost, I believe, just like the buff from the Naru and stuff. The strange aura that I have, of course, is Sanctity Aura. And, of course, someone already killed the Emissary of Hate, so just plunk the thing on top. Yeah, there wasn't... here we go. There wasn't as much shared kill credit with some of this back in those days, so... Hey, Mactheridin Ring. Woo! Greens! Burning Crusade greens, though, were actually pretty decent. We started getting into some of the new itemization for things like bonus spell damage and healing, so your other specs could actually do stuff in the outdoor world. Oh yeah, the portal reading. And, of course, killing those... succubus or seducer or something like that. I'm kind of rusty on my WoW demons. Hammer of Wrath was an execute ability. I did still have a cast time back then, or is the cast time taken off? Anyways, some of this, though, was actually in some of the openers for Some Schtuff back then. Like, I believe that, fighting this Infernal was part of the intro at one point. So, before I brought in some Lich King footage to the intros for Some Schtuff back then. Yeah. There's really not much to say here. Oh yeah, Burning Legion Demons Slain. Going out and slaying 6 demons every single day. Yeah. By the way, Judgment of Command had a boost if you... I think this is where I screwed it up. Still a purple cape? Yep. This is healing with strength gear, so it's not as good and it burns more mana. And that's the thing. Oh wait, where's Blessing of Wisdom? Oh yeah, I think blessings were shorter back then, so... Yeah, Blessing of Wisdom fell off. Now what we have here with Retribution and Blessing of Might versus Blessing of Wisdom. There we go. What was that, 10 minutes? Woo! There was a trinket that boosted your physical and spell damage. That's what those crusade symbols are back then. And the glowy hands is a boost to damage after scoring a critical hit. Anywho, what we had with Blessing of Might versus Blessing of Wisdom was like an ancestor of today's argument in ESO about spell damage via either sustain or burst. So you had to choose with your blessings. Did you want burst damage with higher Blessing of Might, but you'd have to drink more often? Or would you not mind fights taking a little bit longer because you're doing less damage because you're using Blessing of Wisdom and you don't have to do this as much? Sit down and eat and drink. So that's why I would use Blessing of Wisdom, and I would look for, I would use things like intellect heals, intellect gear swaps with heals and stuff. Because Blizzard was not cooperating back in these days, so anybody playing these off-specs, back when off-specs were still a thing in this game, had to resort to various workarounds. And look at how long it takes. Look at all this downtime just to get mana back. Hey, the old honor panel, I remember that. And that was, yeah. What was that I clicked? Oh, yeah, of course. If you really wanted to, you could cast a Greater Blessing, which burned a reagent back then, which was the raid buff. But at least you'd have a 30-minute buff, similar to, say, a Priest's Power Word Shield or something, as opposed to these dumb little blessings that were 5 minutes at one point. The classic players are going to have some fun with that. Oh, man. So that was killing the demons and stuff. Let's go turn that in. Anything else blast from the past-wise that I recognize here? I'll bring it up as I see it. But you'll notice I'm running back to turn them all in at once, largely because the design... Burning Crusade released the design of the quest hubs, where you would basically have your... Everything would be clumped together, so you'd be running back and forth anyways. So, most stuff was clumped together in terms of the objectives, as well as the turn-ins. Rocket launcher! Still didn't crit. So bring on the Seal of Command and hope that crits, because these Destruction Warlocks were really annoying to deal with. They would hit you pretty hard with their Incinerate spell. And the Paladins in this Blood Elf area were really annoying, because they'd cast Holy Light halfway through the fight and get back a ton of their health. Now these Warlocks, though, they had some pretty decent burst damage. Burning Crusade, I don't know if it was because of the burning in the title, but Burning Crusade was when Destruction Warlocks really started to throw their weight around. People used to say, "Oh, Destro, you should have been a mage." You should have been a mage. But actually, Destro started to really pick up in the arena and raids and other stuff. Really started to take on a life of its own in BC. The interesting thing is, with Classic coming up, a lot of the stuff you're seeing here is going to be stuff that's not a thing yet in Classic. Oh, here we go. Yeah, you got to be ready to stun the guy. Otherwise, he would heal for a huge chunk of his health. So, these Dawnblade Blood Knights, they were a pain in the neck when they were at level. Because you'd whittle them down, and then they'd just heal themselves back up. So, you always had to save your stun for when they started healing themselves. So, let's see here. Yep, blood crystal reading. You had something you had to click on. You had to get out here to this crystal and then click on it and stuff. Taking readings for ley lines and stuff. Basically, it was like, go to this place, click something. Go somewhere else and click something. Actually, I think it was something that was in your inventory at the time. What I'm actually looking into... Oh, here we go. Another Blood Knight. Which was the name for the Horde Paladins, because they were Blood Elf only back then. And folks were like, how on earth can... Oh, here we go. Holy Light. Didn't have a... Oh, did stun him this time. So, yeah, that was the name for the Horde Paladins, to differentiate them and make them a little bit evil, versus Alliance Paladins, who were like goody two-shoes and shiny armor and stuff. Whereas the Blood Elves were basically sucking the life out of a Naru in Silver Moon City. That has been fixed. Now, according to lore, the Light of the Sunwell is actually saving the Blood Elves and making them better and stuff like that. Oh, look, some old guild chat that I can't read because it was that long ago. I think I had transferred over to Storm Rage by the time I was recording this, and oh, check it out, people. Bandages. You would keep those handy because you would want to use them, because it would be a little bit faster than sitting down and eating and drinking. Or, you know, blowing through half your mana to cast a few Holy Lights. Lots of mods in use here, obviously. There was a wardrobe mod that I was using back then. X-Pearl Unit Frames is where the animated stuff is coming from. And then these hunters were actually pretty easy to kill. I remember very specifically they were only annoying if there were too many of them. But, of course, they would be melee hunters if you got too close. I don't know if it was possible to exploit the dead zone on these guys. Oh, here we go. Here's where it gets dicey. All of them, including a hunter, warlock, and paladin. And this is not looking good. This is, I think, where I had to blow lay on hands. Oh, no, bubble. Bubble heal. And it took a few times to get the heal to go because you had to change your gear and stuff. And of course, because I had the bubble heal with Retribution gear, the heals weren't as strong and started sapping the heck out of mana. Like I said, you were the arms warrior that ran out of mana back in those days. Look at the blue bar and how bad it's getting. This is what early WoW was like. You were a melee DPS. Oh, here we go. Holy Light. Boom. Got back like 30% of his health. And so, an annoying arch paladin back then. Kind of like a Healadin fight or something. Did I even have potions that I could use back then? 184 minutes. Yeah, this is where I'm trying to line of sight those guys. Blood Knight goes down. Still got to deal with the hunters. Actually, yeah, the Warlock died too. So this is from back in the day when ads were a real threat. And yeah, cleanse, blowing even more mana. Now we're at the point where you just have to hit rank 1 Seal of Command and hope it procs, because you barely have any mana to do anything else. Is Lay on Hands, where is that on here? Is that on cooldown yet? Looking around my old buttons here. By the way, that thing down in the corner next to the mounts and everything, lower right, Divine Intervention. That's how far back we're going. Burn a reagent, sacrifice yourself to put a 3-minute perma bubble, well, sort of, invincibility bubble on someone. And it's time to drink. Absolutely had to drink. Because this was the days of LOLRet, when you would just run out of mana after piddly little fights. Even quicker for the Warladins, who didn't want any intellect on the gear, and were like, oh, I need so many consumables to raid. Yeah, because you can't do anything because you have no longevity in a fight because you're all burst and no sustain. I know this sounds like ESO, but these problems were pretty real back then too. So there I go, switching to holy gear. So now I've got the shield and the brown cloak and the one-handed weapon. So, but still a boost to spell power and intellect. So holy light would be stronger even as retribution. And the mana pool will be larger too, so you can do more stuff where I had to sit down and drink again. But notice, I got caught in combat, so now I'm stuck doing Seal of Command with mostly healer gear on. Here's where the numbers really start to suck. Oh look, a 1,000 crit. Only 300 to 400 per hit, because my guy's wearing the wrong gear. Well, at least he's trading blows with a paladin. Is the Hammer of Justice up? Oh wait, there was also Seal of Wisdom too. That's what those random mana regen things were. There was Seal of Life and Seal of Wisdom, and Seal of Light actually. Yeah, look at how many times it takes to cast Flash of Light because it's trying to change the gear. Macroed heals would bug you out and you'd lose precious seconds when you're whittled down to almost nothing by the mobs. But yep, still running around with the wrong cloak, so everything's not going to hit for as hard, but at least I'll have a little bit more mana. There we go. Purple. Woo! Seal of Command. Rocket launcher. I think it took until the very, very last quest. Evade. That warlock is bugged. Ha ha. Waste of a rocket launcher. Yeah, let's flip them off and be on our way. Slash rude. Let's start beating up this guy with Avenging Wrath. Hey, but at least every so often we can hit Crusader Strike to not stand there waiting for Seal of Command to proc. Yeah, Seal of Wisdom. If you watch what seal is active in the buffs up top, you see the blue thing. That's every so often you get some mana back. And I think if you judged, then that would place a debuff. Or was that later? Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, burst versus sustain. Just as much of a problem in Burning Crusade as people talking about the itemization in games like ESO today. It was a thing back in Burning Crusade, but for all the wrong reasons. Do we have a stun? Oh, yeah, Repentance. That works. It's an incapacitate, but at least stops him from healing. Ah, yes. Burning Crusade. So I think, yeah, you had to kill a certain amount of these blood elves every single day. So that was one of the daily quests. Yeah. So, one of the things I'm looking to do, I recently restarted my Alexstrasza character. Yay! Crush the Dawnblade is done! Woo! No more beating up blood elves. One of the things I want to do with the character I just started on Alexstrasza, see what the leveling experience is like these days with no heirlooms, and then freeze him at 70, take him out here, and I know the level ranges are different nowadays in BFA, but freeze him at 70, bring him out here, go through these quests again, see what it's like nowadays. I'm guessing much easier. Plenty of things on tap for, when Classic launches and stuff like that. But for the sake of the time sensitivity of this video, for people watching after the fact and however many years from now people will actually keep watching this. So, time to go turn this in at the Sun's Reach Armory. Interesting thing was, this daily quest hub, we aren't going to make too many references to Classic, was what I meant to say earlier. This daily quest hub, and of course we've got the intellect gear equipped just to have a little bit more mana regen to not have to drink. And then we'd switch back to the Retribution gear as well. Now, the interesting thing is, this was a coherent experience that you could do every single day. There was a portal to it in Shattrath City, and at the end of it all, you would actually get a teleport scroll to actually go back to Shattrath. and you'd get all your consumables to come back out here the next day and do another round of these quests. So we're done with the Blood Elves, we're done with the demons, now it's time to deal with the other enemy that you kept seeing in Burning Crusade, the Naga, out here. And this is, of course, the Green Gill Coast. There were Murlocs out here to deal with as well. Wait, what am I doing? Did I forget to pick up the quest? What was going on back in those days? Oh, look, red text. Once upon a time, world bosses would, when people aggroed them, would shout stuff in the shout channel. And in Hellfire Peninsula, oh yeah, we had to repair gear and sell stuff off. Yeah, and you could be caught off guard with this too. Back in those days, look, no less bag slots, by the way, if you haven't noticed that. But there was nothing telling you when you were about to run out of space, so you had to make your tough decisions pretty quickly. And are those badges? Yes, those are badges from Badge Gear that are sitting in the inventory because there was no currency tab back then. Hey, worst comes to worst, come back, do some stop and go commentary or take some screenshots of this and talk about, hey, what was that back then? Maybe if folks are interested or something. Oh, look, I see the Zap Throttle Mode Extractor, if anybody knows what that is. Memories. Alright. Sanctity Aura on. All buffs are ready. It is time to go beat up some Naga and Murlocs. So most of these folks used frost magic and stuff, just like in the original game. And, boom. Was I using? No, I think I was using rank 1 Seal of Command. I might occasionally get some good judgments out of the deal, but sitting and drinking every other minute was not my style. Not in the slightest. Yep. And similar. Kill 10 boars, collect 10 apples, that style and whatnot. The objectives, are they there? No, this is from before the objective panel was added. So, yeah, things would appear on the screen when you did stuff, but that was the extent of it. Busy day at the beach. Hey, it's the old water. I think that's coming back in Classic. Oh, can't talk about Classic too much. The old water engine. That wasn't updated until Cataclysm. Oh, look, Frost Mage just kiting all over the place. Fortunately, there was this quest where you had to throw this mind-breaking elixir on all the slave Murlocs, and you'd see them all make their Murloc noises and go running after these guys. That was fun. That was something I didn't mind doing every single day. But beating these guys up, not so much. Oh, wait a minute. The objectives panel was actually smarter back then. When you achieved an objective, it would appear in the area where the objectives panel was, and it would stay on the screen for a bit. And if you did other stuff, it would eventually disappear. Or was that a mod? Yeah, hard to remember. This is so long ago. But, yeah, look at that. And recasting the seals every single time. If they were little 30-second spells, you had to keep recasting, so a constant drain on your already limited mana as a Ret Paladin. So, really, really dumb stuff back in those days. And, yeah. What more is there to say about this? I'm actually running out of commentary. I was like, for years, I was like, oh, yeah, we're doing commentary and stuff. I think there was some... Was that a Warlock curse or something? Curse of Doom used to be like that. You'd have like a minute and then it would kill you or something. And sick the Murlocs on these guys. Tell Ashara I said hello, even though this was a long time before patch 8.2. Closer to 2.8, although there never was a 2.8. Ah, that's right. You had to kill these guys to get chest keys and open up these chests. I think. Was there something you had to collect from them, or were they just bonus loot as you leveled through? These kinds of little details, like the key ring, of course, you can see down by the bags, are still the sort of the sorts of little things that are now no longer in the game. Ah, you did have to open the chests. So beat up the Nagas, take the keys, and then open the chests for that special ore that they had and bring that back. As well as free the Murlocs and watch them go nuts on these folks. Although the damage they always did was trivial. And here we go, once again, you know, all that frost damage and stuff, knocking them down to barely any health. The frost bolts would slow you down, just like when they came from players. And, oh, look, re-engaging. Oh, but yeah, Holy Light. But with Retribution gear, because we're already in combat. But now you have now we have, like, 1,000 mana to play with grand total, so... And that's the thing, part of the DPS was held back by these limitations with the mana pool in these dark times. So, rank 1 Seal of Command and hope it procced. That was your existence as Ret back then, when you got into situations like this. Because if you did burn through all your mana with top-level Seal of Command, so your Judgment actually hit for a decent amount of damage, you either bought tons of potions, and those had cooldowns between when you could take them, or you did some workaround like this. 3 guesses what most players would have preferred. Ground target, watch those Murlocs go crazy. This was also, by the way, during the heydays of WoW Radio, and I think the I Am Murloc song was going around. Otherwise, it was one of the Terpster songs that I keep mixing up with it or something. But yeah, it was not uncommon to goof around in Burning Crusade with Total Biscuit's old WoW radio station going. Either Total Biscuit, either Octale and Hordak. I was also a fan of Casually Hardcore when those podcasts were still... They might still be floating around out there in some dark corner of the internet somewhere. Or at least the Total Biscuit stuff from those days is, I think. I think I found it, like, that stuff a couple of months ago. Yeah, WoW Radio. And it's pretty sad to listen to that stuff nowadays because internet connections weren't what they are back in those days, so the quality was lower. So, there would be plenty of compression. So you'll listen to some of that stuff today and it'll just sound awful. So you're like, oh, this was good. I mean, when you got sick of the WoW music looping over and over again, you would just turn off the music and have WoW radio going in the background. Listen to people talk about video games or other stuff, things were going on, but this is, of course, the heydays of this game when it was more of a social phenomenon than it is today, and it was basically everywhere. WoW Radio was unofficial. It wasn't actually anything Blizzard actually was involved with, but there was enough fan content that you could have a full-blown radio station with some overclocked remixes during the studio downtime. Yeah, time to sample that leyline field. Is this the only... Yep, you just had to take a reading at the shrine, and know your ley lines is now complete. I'll drink to that. Actually, you would drink because you had to. And look at how slow the mana's coming back, too. That was to discourage drinking being abused as a way to quickly gain mana back if someone got you down to 0. This is from the day and age of drain teams and stuff like that. Folks that would go nuts with Mana Burn and Viper Sting in the arenas and stuff. There was an entire part of the PvP in this game that was about draining the heck out of the other healer until they ran out of mana and you could actually kill their teammates. So, actually, healing wasn't as wild as it has been in recent expansions, although downranking still being a thing. I mean, that was part of the issue. So, oh yeah, fight in the water. And of course, yeah, heck with physics. You can just jump even though you're up to your chest high in water. You just jump like you're doing the normal thing. Enough of this. I think all that was left was, yep, another round of Murlocs. The chests are still blinking though. So there were definitely, there were more keys to get and more chests to unlock. There's one. Nope. It's locked. You need another key somewhere. You know, it's interesting. I think nowadays, with the criticism and the community's feedback and stuff about time gating, would some of this be considered time gating? Some of this dating? Yeah, let's wave at the guy and hope he comes over. Of course, he also brings a buddy who's now going to be blasting frost bolts. So, maybe some of this was, oh wait, Frost Mage to the rescue. Oh nope, that's another enemy. So double blasted with frost bolts. This is not looking good. And Frostbolts slowed you down. Anyways, I do wonder, though, now that it's post-Warlords of Draenor, would people call this kind of stuff time gating? Because there is obviously some things here that look like they were designed to hold back people's use of their time. And basically make this last as long as possible, so you get the $15 a month and stuff like that. Or is that more the cynicism that we see nowadays? Even though there are signs that it could have been there earlier in the game. Yeah, look at us having to cleanse, and that didn't take care of the... So he's Blessing of Freedom. Holy light to hopefully not get taken out by this Frost Mage Naga lady. Yeah, there was some kind of damage after... it's been too long. Might have to take an at-level character out there and see what this stuff's like nowadays, but I know it's going to be easier. Was that the last key? Can we finally be done with this? Oh, wait, no, more stuff for the Murlocs. Actually, no. No, I'm just throwing that stuff now just because it's funny to watch the Murlocs go nuts and attack the Naga. I don't know if that would actually happen today. Hey, that thing you just saw me pop open, that's the key ring. Once upon a time. The heck? Oh, yes, that was... Yep, just like in Mists of Pandaria on the Timeless Isle. Nobody ever swam out into the ocean to look for Naga. They would always fight him on land, so if you ran out of monsters, you'd always just go out into the ocean. And here's my guy now with the deep dive helmet, and even more of a stats disadvantage with mana and armor and stuff. Oh, the bad old days. But your underwater breath didn't last anywhere near as long. The interesting thing here is that, unless you're undead, but this is interesting because this is a precursor to some stuff I did on the Timeless Isle later on. Nobody ever wanted to fight the Nagas underwater because it would be a long, drawn-out fight underwater. Oh, look, he's jumping in the water. Another old thing that I forgot was ever a thing in the game. You could jump in the water and basically go up a little. And he's resisted that darn rocket launcher. Well, yeah, I totally forgot. If you jumped in the water, you would basically jump up a little, as if you were jumping and stuff. It's not like swimming upward. That, of course, has been fixed, as evidenced by me having forgotten about it. Oh, man. Remember the days. And all this just for a key to open that last chest in order to get more of that ore and stuff. Because we ran out of mobs on land, and the spawn timers were such that we might be chasing people for mobs if we tried camping them or something. Oh boy. Once upon a time, baby. Once upon a time. Oh, a key! We can finally go back to the shore! Switch back to Retribution gear. Oh wait, I don't have any mana. Maybe we should do something else. Look at that jumping underwater stuff. And we finally have what I hope is the last of that we needed. This has certainly gone on. Yes, we have it! Let's take a little bit longer to summon them out and go back and turn this crap in. But while we're riding back to the turn-in point, notice the tedium back in these days. Notice the tedium! I think today it might be considered time gating. Oh, it's time gated. Blizzard's just trying to stretch everything out. Oh, man. And, of course, ground mounts go all the way back, although at least I had the epic mounts unlocked by then. I actually spent most of Burning Crusade on the regular mount until I finally saved up the money for it. Silver Moon's Pride. Yay, that's done. Now, there's another turn-in, and make sure you jump so you don't fall in the water, because the docking plank wasn't all the way out. Hey, the Charger! Which totally doesn't match the color scheme in Burning Crusade gear with all the Draenei-inspired purple. But, as you can guess from the time left on this, we are still not done. So these daily quests were in waves. Yeah, and I think that's the reason why I kept having to go back, because you couldn't just pick them up all at once. You had to do a few of them, then do some others, then go out and do the rest of them. But I think the bombing run is all that's left. Could be wrong, though. It has been a while. Was there? Yeah, there's another turn-in.
State your business.
Turn-in that. And there's the teleportation scroll. That's what would take you back to Shatrath City when you were done with everything. But we are not done. Oh, no, we are not done. Turn the Sanctity Aura back on. And time for another Greater Blessing. Yeah, why not? Who cares we wasted a reagent back in those days? If it meant we didn't have to cast it again. They probably should have casted it when I came down from something. I think the bombing run is all that's left. Why I'm just running over on foot, I have no clue. Oh, Seal of Command's getting swapped. Yes, it is. It's bombing run time. Swap out Seal of Command from spot number 2 and put in the bombing run thing. So, there was no vehicle. There were no vehicles back then, so you got special abilities that you put on your bars for things like the bombing run. And you just couldn't use the bombs until you were actually in the zone. We're basically going to bomb some demons and stuff. Although some people actually tried to fight some of these guys, and then they came back and tried to solo. Yeah, they were basically Sunwell enemies outside the Sunwell instance. Some people tried to be daring and head on out. There's the Sunwell troops firing at you from the raid. Some nice Burning Crusade music with this too, and so basically the way it is you'd get this down pat, and you'd be really good at clicking. Otherwise, you'd have to click the bombs in your inventory every single time. But if you got this down to a hotkey like I did, you would basically just be able to click, 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 get it all done in one pass. Because as you can see from how long the flight time is going to be, if you don't get this done in one pass, then no vehicles either, not until Lich King. So you actually had to keep swapping stuff off of your bars and stuff along those lines. Couldn't use the bombs till you got into the bombing run zone, which makes me wonder, why did I have my guy even recast the Greater Blessing? Because this is going to take a couple of minutes off of it, and there's basically nothing we can do here. Oh. Yeah, nice scenic flight. Kind of like taking a flight path. So, go on the bombing run quest, and you have to fly on out there before you could... Here we go. Time to take out some demons with these arcane bombs. This is where it gets a bit like a first-person shooter. Point and click. Look at those Eridar Sorcerers. I think the spell they used was called Flames of Doom. Eridar Sorcerer, excuse me. Wrath Enforcer. Was there a boss character or something? This is basically kind of sort of like a preview mode of the Sunwell raid, because many of these monsters were actually, many of these demons were similar to the mobs you fought in there. Yes, there was a boss character, and I think he would complain when you threw your bombs at hum. There's the... Yep, there's the fire and everything. That would stop you from actually engaging with them. You're only allowed to fight... I think you're only allowed to fight the trash mobs. So the boss dude would actually yell at you for that sort of thing. Although, interestingly enough, we're doing this from a Ret Pallie perspective. I think that boss we threw some bombs at was... the boss that we threw the bombs at, I think, was one of the bosses in Sunwell, and Ret Paladins were actually, with some of the buffs from Blessings and stuff, and Judgments, I think Ret Pallies were actually made that boss easier. One of the few raids and one of the few Sunwell instances where you'd have guilds saying, we can't clear this without our Ret Pallie. Because little tiny buffs all adding up would mean the difference between your raid being successful or not being successful. Hey, yeah, look, just swap them back, put Seal of Command back in the bar, back on the bar, and put slash salute, really? Put Seal of Command back on the bar, and swap it all back. Yeah, put it all back. We'll save the bomb thing for next time. That'll just darken up when we turn in the quest and we no longer have the item in our inventory. So Burning Crusade, isn't it? Of course, now we get to enjoy the in-flight scenery and listen to the music a little bit longer. And this is what you did every single day. It built up the Shattered Sun reputation, which eventually gave you access to badge gear and a tabard and stuff like that. This is what you did every single day. This is what doing your dailies was all about. Back when doing your dailies from a hub like Quel'danas first became a thing. By the way, another reminder as we fly in for a landing from this bombing run here. If you think I talk too much, because I'm doing the commentary version of this finally after all these years, and you want to see this footage raw with zero commentary whatsoever and just the game audio, the raw version of this is also available on the channel, and I will also... Wait a minute! Oh, wait a minute. That's right. I think there was something we had to do with... Yeah, we had to blow up some ships or something? I think there were 2 bombing runs. Totally forgot this one. Yeah. Yep, we had to blow up the sails of these ships. Or set them on fire with incendiaries. 2 bombing runs. But hey, this is Burning Crusade. This kind of stuff was what this game was all about. This is new content. The precursor to the vehicle quests in Wrath of the Lich King. I think this one was shorter, though. But yeah, if you want to see this with zero commentary whatsoever, it is available on the channel. And look at those mages using water walking. No Death Knights yet, so no Path of Frost. So, if you want to see this without any commentary, it's available on the channel and will be made available through the end screen. But as it is right now, I think, yeah, we just had to... Yeah, you had to burn the sails, and you had to... Oh, you actually had to fight on the ships. Assuming that everybody hadn't just farmed everything to death. And that's why the mages were running across the water. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a long while. So you'd pick your ship, and if you saw people on deck, you would swim to the other one. Because you knew they'd farmed everything. I think this pattern was actually something that happened later on as well. With some of the other dailies in some places. Yep, and it's similar mobs to when we were beating up the blood elves earlier. So you have paladins, hunters, and I don't know if there are warlocks out here, but we got a hunter anyways. So, or maybe they were all like that. Yeah, reservists and stuff. Yep. I don't think these were as annoying as the paladins in the earlier part of your day, as of your daily quest rotation, routine, whatever you want to call it. Well, you should get some netherwing cloth out of the deal. But there were never enough of these per ship, so you always had to go to a different ship. So I imagine some people, probably in today's world, would say, "Oh, that's time gating. I have to swim in the water now."
Still recharging. I can't that spell.
I don't really know what to say anymore. I've been talking this whole time, and I'm surprised I was able to pull this off without just shutting up. Oh, wait, yeah, the respawns were to our favor sometimes, like this. 1493. 700 on a judge. Don't know if I'm still using rank 1. Here we go. Rocket launch with the Avenging Wrath. Boom. 3 grand. And that was a big number back then. I think that's when I finally got the rocket launcher to crit. Blowing Avenging Wrath in order to do that. And, hey, what do you know? We took out the entire ship, and now we are short 1 mob to turn in the quest. What is this? J Bard. What am I typing there back? Oh, wait. I think that's a... Yeah, board. Stand around whistling until one of these things respawns. Today's WoW crowd will be like, time gated. Hey, the clockwork rocket bot. Yeah, I remember when non-combat pets had that type of a cast time.
So, an orc walks into a bar with a parrot.
And of course, you just goof around until something respawned, because what are you going to do? Swim out to another ship and risk that someone else is in the same boat on one of the other 2 ships? No, you got the place to yourself. And because you're on the ship, other players would see you were there, probably assume you were waiting for something to respawn, and they'd swim away. Not like in today's world. Very different from back in the day. It just was a little more boring and a little more tedious. So remember, folks, we're here on the eve of Classic coming out. Even this represents stuff that Classic isn't going to have. And I'm not just talking about the Burning Crusade content. I'm talking about issues with itemization. I'm talking about issues with the way that classes play, who's viable at what, and stuff like that. At running out of quests in a zone and having to fly all around the world just to keep having something to do in order to keep leveling without grinding. Yeah, this is crude by today's standards. Clockwork rocket bot. I think, yeah. This is crude by today's standards, but what's coming out in Classic is going to be even cruder. Hey, yeah, finally, someone respawned. Now we can finally take out the last mob, and finally, if things proc, and finally go turn all of this in. Just jump off the ship and go back and turn everything in. So it does make sense, though, that you set the sails on fire and then board the ship so they couldn't sail away and stuff. Oh, the rocket bot was stuck back on the ship. I don't know if the non-combat pets were able to swim very well back in those days. Yep, that is it. And now you have the long, slow swim back to the shore. Yeah, you could fly out to these things, but then you had to do this. And I suppose if Blizzard wanted to be even more tedious about it, they could put sharks in the water that would come after you while you were swimming like this every single day. So, there you go, folks. This is what doing your dailies was all about back in those days. And it has been very, very challenging to talk over this stuff for this long. I thought this would be a lot easier than it actually was. But here we are, returning to land, doing a little bit of jumping because we're getting bored with swimming. Now let's get our mount out that takes longer to summon so we can actually be a little bit faster to go for the final turn in. Now I recorded this up until using the teleport scroll because I wanted to show everything. Oh yeah, by the way, Crusader Aura was something you had to click on in order for your mounts as a paladin to be 20% faster. So, manual switchover. That's why the seals had to keep getting, or the auras had to keep getting recast. Things you remember.
Be ready
So,
for
yay,
anything.
the airstrikes are turned in, and I believe there's, what, one more turn in? What's that thing that popped up? I don't know if that might be for Magister's Terrace or not, but I did get this right, so everything I was doing every single day was documented with this recording. And this is where we go to turn in the stuff from the adventure at sea that we do every single day. Quel'danas, ladies and gentlemen. Quel'danas.
Good health, long life.
Now, in the years since recording this, there have been people, Ret Paladins and whatnot, destroy the clam. It usually only has clam meat half the time anyways. There have been Ret Paladins that have said that, well, our damage is terrible. Well, if you think Ret has ever had it bad in the days since this, you need to look back and remember these bad old days of LOLRet. And I think that this trip through Quel'danas really kind of represents what we all had to deal with every single day. Especially in crappy gear when you couldn't raid. Nobody wanted you. Haha, LOLRet. You're useless. Go respec. So that was the teleport Shatrath scroll, which leads us back to Adal, and there's a portal, of course, going back out to. There's a portal that's going back out to wave to the Naru. There's a portal that's going back out to Shatrath for the next day's daily quests, and that's how things were back during the bad old days, including the person playing dead on top of the giant model of the Sunwell area. Well, time to wave goodbye and say goodbye to this ancient footage. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by, and game on!